Hello again, everyone, and I wanted to introduce really shortly Elevating Leadership Institute. It is the place where we grow together with the guidance of professional athletes and based on sports psychology, how we bridge to professional lives. The teachings, the high performance definition. And what is important at LI is also this wholeness of the person, because we believe truly that to reach full potential, to get the most value out of ourselves, out of life, it is important to engage it not only with one aspect of life, we tend to believe that if we merge into one field 100%, this is how we're going to reach the highest results. However, life shows, and us who went through the high performance and super deeply focused in one field and came out of it with the perspective, what I will be so interested to explore with Jack Groppel, especially after reading his book, Mountains with Wind, which is coming out in January, right?
January the 8th. Yeah.
January the 8th. I will definitely encourage absolutely everyone to read it. It's fascinating. Jack, your life is so rich with drive, with ambition, and with challenges. And what you said it to facing the truth,
Right.
tracing the truth, not about the things, but you were exploring, and you were the first one who actually brought the science in sport with more depth, with more analysis. I feel like you even converted to be it professional from hobby perspective. uh,
Really, yeah.
yeah, because you mentioned yourself, like at the time, people approached it with a little bit of feels approach, and then you brought lots of data about it, and in the how it feels like to be performing high level and what you missed in that high performance, how you approach. So definitely we're gonna go into those subjects today, and my first question to
Sure.
you would be, because it is so important for us at Elevating Leadership Institute, is this word and concept of ambition. And you mentioned in your book a lot, but it is very important from where that ambition comes from. And how do you feel when we are driven so much by our passion, how not to lose ourselves? And are we losing ourselves, and how does it lead it to high performance? And what does that mean to you, high performance now, and where you're at now?
Yeah. So how long do we have? No. It really is the idea of ambition and drive when you start to look inside your own heart at what has driven you. I mean, for me, I mean, it's as of January the 8th, it's going to be no secret. I mean, I had a, and I caution people, don't compare yourself to me, because it'll be very easy for you to say, well, I'm not you. Well, this isn't about mine is just a story. This is about you. And I just use my story as a frame of reference. But in fact, the dedication of the book is to anybody that ever felt in their life that they had to please someone, or anybody that ever felt in their life they weren't good enough. That's who the dedication of the book is. Um, so my father and I had a very strange relationship, and he drove our home by fear. But instead of cowering, I, for whatever reason, developed an "I'll show you" attitude. Watch me. And at the end of the day, I was this highly successful professional man who really was looking for love from his father, um, fairly further into my life. And it was like I developed almost an achievement addiction, that I was so driven. And to your point, Inga, when I got involved in sports science, there was no template to follow. Um, in fact, I was one. my master's thesis advisor said 17 words to me. He said, "If you really apply yourself, you could become a pioneering leader in the science of tennis performance." And that was all it took. That was the motivation for me to start my own career. And again, to your point, Inga, I had to do a lot of stuff for free because nobody believed that this science application was going to really stick to sport because sport was very traditional. I'll never forget when I did the filming for the Chicago White Sox and in baseball, and the manager was screaming at me, at all costs, do not let these players see those films, 16 millimeter films. Well, look at the multi-million dollar budgets that pro teams have today. I mean, so this is before the era when traditionalism in sport and how many coaches, they coached the way they were coached. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's kind of a biased way of coaching. You're not really coaching the person you're working with. You're coaching based on how you learned. So for me, I was really driven. And when I had this man in my life, my master's thesis advisor, say, you could become a pioneering leader, I mean, it was like, okay, let's go. And I didn't know what that meant. Honestly, I said, let's go. I had no idea what the step was. I just knew that, okay, if I can be the first, let's figure it out. So I just started making sure that I did really quality research, that everything I was doing was really quality. And then I started asking questions. I started sending letters to people. This is way before social media and email. So I'm sending physical letters to magazines, and I can show you how to do this. And then I started writing, and how I got involved with World Tennis Magazine. I'll never forget this. I won't say the name of the player, but it was a very famous former professional player, was on international television and said, this is the way you hit topspin on a tennis ball. And he said, you roll over the ball, which is totally not correct. I mean, you brush the back of the ball like this, but he said you roll over the ball. And I was incensed because here I am, I'm studying this and I'm going, well, what are we going to do? So the company that the broadcasting company also owned a magazine called World Tennis Magazine. So I sent them a letter with stop action pictures from the high speed film on how topspin is actually hit. And I say, we owe it to your readers that we teach the game the right way. And suddenly, then for 5 years, I was a technical editor for World Tennis Magazine. And then after that, for 12 years, I became an instruction editor for Tennis Magazine, the largest tennis magazine in the world. But it all started because of the drive to step up and say, what we're doing is wrong, and we owe it to people to be right in how we teach. So that was kind of how things got started. There was no template, but and for whatever reason, I had this blind ambition. But again, I come back to the foundation of proving to my father that I had value. So now
Uh,
we can go from there now and talk about ambition in the workplace if you want.
we definitely want to talk about that too.
You want me
And
just to
then,
keep going? Because
yes,
what
please.
happens what happens in business, we become almost, and I say this with total respect because I started a business with one partner and our personal money, and 15 years later we sold it to a Fortune 50 company. I'm not bragging, but I'm telling you, I worked for a Fortune 50 company for 11 years. And I get it. We almost become automatons. I mean, I talked to somebody today, a good friend at a Fortune 50 company, and she's in calls all day long. And not one thing's getting knocked off her to do list, though. So she's in calls all day long. And then at the end of the day, her to do list is bigger. And we look in our heart and go, what the heck? Pardon, I almost said, what the heck? I mean, we're because we literally just go, go, go. And what we become, and again, I say all this with respect, but what we become is like that famous picture of the rock skipping across the water. And all of us that did this as kids, we tried to take the flat rock and skip it across the water. And how many times can we skip it across the water? But that's how we start living our life. We're skipping across the surface of water. We're not able to go deep because we're just go, 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 go. And social media and the internet has done everything to keep us on the surface. It doesn't allow us to go deep unless we intentionally go deep. So that is what starts to happen with blind ambition in business. Because again, you're only rewarded if you do a great job. You get stock options if you do a great job. You get promoted if you do a great job. So then you get into what do we have a growth mindset? See, again, I want to be really careful and respectful. Absolutely, we do, but it often becomes only about our career. For me, I had a tremendous growth mindset, but it was all about my career. Here I get married. I even have in my book, I have a statement. I wouldn't have married me. I mean, I had no energy to share with a human being in love and intimacy. I was so driven, but and I didn't know it. See, this is the thing. The ambition drove me that I thought I was doing the right thing. See, I was raised in a very my father was very German and Swiss, and it was the dude, just work, 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 and don't take your foot off the gas. And if you're successful, that's great. But it really wasn't the best thing for the person I married. It wasn't at all. And then you start. It becomes an endless cycle. Then you see, so we get in this unhealthy mode. Sure, we've got a growth mindset, but often our growth mindset isn't about our personal life. See, that's a little vulnerable and dangerous. That's hard to look in that mirror and say, oh, there's some blemishes in that personal mirror. Professional mirror is going great. Let's just keep building that. Personal mirror doesn't look so pretty. I'll stop there and see where you want to go further.
Why do you think it is this way? Do we take our personal life for granted? I really love how you describe it as blind ambition, checking the boxes. I
Mhm.
mean, I got married, I keep achieving my titles, I keep growing, but like, how to start seeing?
Yeah.
And then
So,
why it's so for granted taking?
well, it's easy to see in our business lives. It's easy because we get constant feedback. Constant feedback. You're promoted. You get rated every year. You either get you get stock options. You get a cash bonus. You get a raise. You're constantly given feedback. In our personal life, unless you ask your loved ones for feedback, they often don't give it, or they do it in the form of anger, or they get resentful. Um, we like I mean, again, I don't mind being vulnerable. My father did not demonstrate a really great role model between connection between a man and a woman. So here I am getting married. I I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing. I should have been in counseling. I mean, and but I assumed that I knew what to do. Do you see? We intellectually assume we know what to do. And I would challenge everybody, don't make that assumption. Ask the people that matter most in your life. Ask them, am I giving you the energy that you need from me? And this is not by the way, this isn't just intimate relationships, this is friendships. Because you got to remember what really hit me rock bottom was in 1996, and Inga, you read this in the book. Um, I was in the hospital for 15 days. I almost lost my life. I had a PICC line, I had a staph infection, had a PICC line into my heart. Here I've been building this incredible reputation. A lot of people knew who I was, and I had one person outside my family come to visit me. And I said, "You got to be kidding me. This is who I'm becoming?" And I said, "This is going to stop now." Now, it took me a little while to figure it out, but it stopped. And then and then the real kicker came about 12 years later when I went to China by myself and adopted my son.
Mm.
This is where I say that God has a sense of humor, because he's going to send this man in his 50s to China by himself, and they're going to put a screaming 4-year-old in his arms that hates his guts. And you can't talk. All you've got is facial expression, tone of voice, and touch. That's all you've got. And I'm going to teach this man how to love somebody. And I'll tell you what, you grow up pretty quickly in a situation like that, because you're all this kid's got, and this kid's all you've got in
I,
that 2 week time period.
I'm a little bit selfish here. So I'm sorry for here is on the call, because what you just mentioned, I remember also taking a huge note in your book when you mentioned also in the end of the book how your son saw you and how you understood how you presented to your son.
Yeah.
It was not the version
Well,
you should have.
it was funny. Again, this is how we our perceptions, our self-perceptions. You know, when they were bringing my son out, he was the very last one. He was older. Most of the kids being brought out are infants, and he's almost 4. He's 1 month shy of 4 years old. Now, so he's been inculcated into the culture and everything, and he's the last one being brought out. And there's a sheet across the room. I'll never forget it. And they say, your son is coming out now. So I'm thinking in my heart, I'm going to get down on his level. I'll smile and I'll have my arms out and I'll greet him. And the poor little guy is just screaming that he's being kidnapped. And I mean, it's awful. We can't get him to settle down. Well, I come to find out 2 years later when he learns a little bit of English, and we're at the dinner table at home, and and I don't even know how the conversation. I think it got to. I said, "Buddy, do you remember the day we met?" And he goes, "Oh, Daddy, you scared me." And I went, "What? Wait, what? What do you mean I scared you?" I said, "I know I was nervous. You were, yeah. What do you mean?" He literally says, "Let me show you." He gets out of the chair at the dinner table, crouches down, and looks like this. I must have looked like a clown. I mean, I scared the living crap out of my own son, who I'm trying to give love, but see, the perception is in the eye of the beholder. We think we're doing things the right way, but it's not being received the way we intended it to be received.
And I think so. This is so important to keep mindful too. When we live this life, we live not alone.
Oh,
So how we are, it's also reflection of us, but also we need to be mindful what impact we're making on others, and is this the right kind of impact or inspiration what we create. Okay, I will open up the floor. I see Mantas already
please,
itching.
Yes,
please.
thank you. Thank you for your deny. Yeah, Inga, actually, I have a question for you, first of all. May I share anonymously a story you told me just the other day about a lawsuit?
Lawsuit? Which one?
Permission.
Doesn't know what you're
Yeah,
talking.
this is now getting interesting, right?
Okay, fine. Since you set it up this way.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we can cut this part out of the recording. The energy to basically sort of to not accept acceptable.
Right.
And I'm actually wondering. I'm setting this up specifically in such a way. I'm actually wondering, Jack, how do you feel with the perspective that you have now, that this scarcity mindset, where people tend to only focus on the and exercising their one arm, and they leave everything else sort of forgotten. Do you feel that this actually leads to, like this story would suggest, to opportunities when it really matters most? We sort of lose that backbone, and we don't, because from the stuff you've been sharing, it seems that when it matters most, we lose the backbone.
Yeah. So in the book, I referred a lot that there were holes in my wholeness, and the biggest hole happened when I was really little. I don't mind because it's public knowledge now. I mean, I got a really bad beating from my father when I was 6 years old, and I understood why he was scared. Now I look back, but it was uncalled for. It was really terrible. But that put a hole in my wholeness that I had for decades, and I think sometimes we don't look at the holes. We don't look at the personal holes. We look at the professional holes because that's what we have to improve to get a raise or to get further along in our career. But our personal holes, I know for a fact I didn't. I mean, that was why, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places is probably one of my best theme songs. You know, the and then Here I Go Again by Whitesnake, because I didn't get it straightened out. I just kept going back and doing the same mistakes over again. And the issue becomes that, yeah, and the other theme song is On the Road Again, because I got on the road and I used business to take away all the problems. See, the busier I stayed, the fewer problems I had personally. You see what I'm getting at, Metis? And I think if we don't look at our whole being, and and I'm just a huge believer in counseling and therapy, or at least having a third party who doesn't have a vested interest in what's going on in your life. You know, had I done that, I probably could have done even more. But I was very one dimensional in, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. But the one dimensionality was as a performer. It wasn't as a person. So I tell people to this day, I've got dear, dear friends, and I say there's a very big difference between Dr. Jack, who can turn it on in a dime and speak in front of thousands of people and turn them on, they don't even know who he is, versus Jack, who has a very caring heart and doesn't give a rat's butt about Dr. Jack. And that's my truth.
Yeah.
Personal Jack is very proud of Dr. Jack, but personal Jack doesn't need to be Dr. Jack all the time. That was what I had to face.
Having like Inga the opportunity to read the book, I'm almost finished with it as well, and it's Jack, I've looked up to you for many years, but in the book I've also learned a lot about the work of Dr. Jack, the audiences that you spoke in front of, the people with whom you were speaking, amazing Hollywood, Hollywood's best presidents, first, the first lady, I mean, really the queen, I mean, amazing people. So I'm thinking a lot about the Dr. Jack, kind of the avatar, and yet now, like, we're here with Jack, not Dr. It really feels like Jack, like not Dr. Jack.
Yeah.
Do you kind of see this as like a kind of a second wave for you? Like, I mean, going forward, do you feel like when you start to do podcasts and talk about the stories in this book, or you take the stage again, do you feel more like Jack in your own skin, or does the Dr. Jack come back?
Well, well, the beauty of that question is that I can use Dr. Jack to support Jack. I can be very authentic and then use all the skills that Dr. Jack has as a presenter in front of an audience, but turn them on in a very, very different way, in a very authentic. See, Dr. Jack never, ever would show vulnerability. Are you kidding me? Not a chance. Dr. Jack would let anybody in that door. But Jack's opened the door now. And Jack is really honored to be able to share this, because I believe I can change more people's lives now than Dr. Jack ever did. I really do believe that. Because I think a lot of people have this struggle that I struggled with.
I feel so I feel so lucky that, like, as we kind of get to talk to you, that we're seeing Jack. Like, I mean, is amazing, and the good that not just the good that Jack is doing now, but the good that Jack is going to do going forward because of the way you've chosen to share this story. It's immensely powerful.
And I do believe everything happens for a reason. I think I probably had all this wild success in my career as Dr. Jack, I mean, that actually enables me to be better at being just Jack. And really talking heart to heart with people about what are the holes in your wholeness? Where are things? Where could you be better? And yeah, I would never take away from success in your business, in your career. But 100 years from now, nobody's going to care what Dr. Jack did. But people might care what Jack did if he's able to help people's lives. And at the end of the day, it's my son that I adopted from China. 100 years from now, his grandkids, that's what we have to think about. 100 years from now, nobody's going to care that I sold my business to a Fortune 50 company.
And also, I mean, it's so present when we open up and talk about vulnerabilities, and opened to different ideas than we already have. Having that flexibility, it already shows this presence of the strength, way much powerful than we keep pretending, but we know it all, and then what we are absolutely in charge of everything. It's such a big difference from the energy point of view. And how do you feel like it's how can we show, or how we can train, or is it possible to, I mean, you mentioned about therapy and about the third person's feedback. My question is also, you mentioned in the book, practice alone only makes permanent.
Yeah.
Only perfect practice makes perfect. Would it be that way, and what you meant by that?
No, I want to come back to something I said a little earlier and sort of emphasize that point. I said, please, please, please don't compare yourself to me, because it would be so easy for you to say, well, I can't do what you did. Maybe you can't. It's not about me, because you see, the biggest thing my biggest fear of all this, and Joe, coming back to your statement, people could look at me and say, well, at your age, you've already accomplished all this stuff. You've already done all this. So of course you're okay with coming and being so vulnerable. Well, I would challenge that. I would challenge that if I could have just done more about my own wholeness when I started seeing the first marriage go in the tank, I probably could have done a lot better. I probably could have. I really do believe I could have been better at everything. All it was about creating boundaries around what matters most in my life. And so we come back then, Inga, to your question that, yeah, you have to take an inventory. You have to take an inventory. And that's where I say, there's nothing hard and fast about what the inventory looks like. Often it's just feedback, asking your closest friends and allies, am I a good friend, or am I a good partner? Am I good for you? How can I support you? And then don't say a word, because I can only, again, I'll talk about my life. That way it's safe for everybody here. I'm a speaker. As children, think about what we learn. We learn how to spell, we learn how to speak, we learn how to, we never learn how to listen. And I wish I would have had a lesson on that when I was in my 20s, on how to listen better. And I think those kinds of skills are really, really important, and then you come back, cursive writing is so important, with journaling. I mean, you go back and look at the work of Pemberton in the 90s at the University of Texas, Austin, on storytelling, and he found that journaling, handwriting, will actually rewire the brain if you do it the right way. Well, now we're losing writing skills. We're losing these cursive skills with children, and I'm just going, wait a minute, at the this is where technology, yes, it's helping us be more productive, but it's also making us weaker as a species, as a human species. So we have to really keep taking an inventory, I believe. It's about our own personal inventory. It's not comparing ourselves to anyone.
It's again, like what you're saying, our relationship to technology, and then also understanding what makes us unique and stronger versus the tools what we're having. I also want to ask Joel, if I might, because you went through the huge transformation. What so far resonated, what Jack shared? Maybe you can even give a little bit backstory of your journey to Jack.
Yeah, so much has resonated. I think back, I keep, and through this conversation, thinking back to a session we were on earlier in the year, right? It was January. I remember it clearly. And I was doing this sorting. Remember this call where had this time away from work? Jack and others, I'd taken ultimately what turned out to be about a year off from work. I took I had left my previous organization voluntarily, looking, kind of recognizing that a midlife sort of thing. What did I want the rest of my career to look like, right? And so it was a very difficult sort of process. I call it my divine discomfort. It was incredibly discomforting, and sometimes painful, extremely difficult. But there was I would describe as a divinity to it. There was a really kind of cosmic thing that was happening with me that was helping me kind of drive me to my next phase of life. But I had it was really an incredible experience on that January day, because I had this call with this community happening, and I was in my attic sorting through all of these possessions that have collected over the years. And what I had also collected were boxes of my parents and my brother's possessions who had died. My dad had died when I was 12, when he was 53, and my mom had died when I was 19, when she was 60. And then my brother had died 10 years ago, at the age of 49, um, from colon cancer. So these are very huge
Right.
occurrences in my life, just very shattering. My brother's death was very shattering to me, right? Because I had almost felt like that my parents' death had inoculated me against anything really bad happening ever again, right? So when my brother, died at such a young age, a very brief 6-month illness, that was just very shattering to my sister and I. But anyway, this whole process, I remember in that call in Montes, I remember it so clearly. You asked me why this sorting was so important to me. And I think in that conversation, it bore out that because I had to create room for more, right? I had lived my life very busy, right? I had literally stuck everything in boxes. I had stuck everything in compartments and avoided it, right? And during this time, when I had time to actually think, because I wasn't working and committing all my energy and time to my career, I actually started to reflect on my own personal life, my own personal history, my own family, and it opened up this whole new connection to myself, right? And hearing you talk, Jack, I can sense the same sort of kind of mourning, Mourning, right? It's my Southern, of not having discovered this sooner, right? Not having been this person sooner, right? And to have harnessed more personal satisfaction, more demonstrated behaviors of who I truly am as a friend and family member, right? Um, so I think that's a long answer. There's a lot of background there. That's a long answer to that question. What resonates with me is here at 50, I'll be 55 in December, I've discovered a new part of myself that's always been there, but I've never developed a relationship with, that is helping me kind of propel myself into the next phase of my life. Right? Does that make sense? There was a lot there. But does that make
Thank you, but
sense?
I think this is really very it's beautiful and it's appropriate. If you hadn't been sorting, do you think you would have done the reflection?
No,
I
I
don't think so
don't.
either. See, I think what you did in the sorting, you created a margin for yourself. You created an area in your life, a boundary where you could self-reflect. And you see
Mhm,
that's counter to what happens in our world today. See, with the internet and with how productivity is monitored now, we keep ourselves so busy that there is no margin for self-reflection. And
mhm,
that's why it's easy to have the default mechanism. Well, my loved ones know, they understand. No, they don't. No, they don't. And
mhm,
what a blessing that you were sorting and you were able to do that self-reflection. What an
mhm.
incredible blessing.
Yeah, it has been an incredible blessing, and you know what? It's made me more empathetic to
Sure.
others. It's made me more cognizant of others who are behaving in the same way. I see it all the time. I'm gonna be really, really busy. I have a lot going on. I'm going to, and so I'm much more aware of that, and it makes me want to influence or actually even explore more with people about what drives them, right? What they're really about, you know?
That's what we were able to do at HPI when people we actually a lot of companies would want us to come into their headquarters and do the 2.5 day course. We actually did our best to not do that because they were still they were in their niche where they worked. We did our best to get them to come to our headquarters and get away from work so that we could have those times where they could do that reflection. And Inga, this comes back to your question. I really didn't go to your question on the that practice makes permanent, perfect practice makes perfect. And what Joel just explained was he allowed himself a moment of perfect practice where he may not have done the self-reflection had he not created that margin to do it. But had he not done that, then he continues the same path. That's what makes it permanent. See, we just go, 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 and that's what becomes permanent. And that's why, in I use the example in tennis. If I never get instruction, which I never did, I taught myself to play as a junior. I could hit the ball pretty well, but I couldn't play world class. I could play pretty well, but not great because I didn't do I was practicing a lot, to get good at what skills I developed, but I hadn't developed the best skills. So I think, Joel, that gave you a chance for that perfect practice kind of an idea, and now you can do it more regularly. See, because now you can stop and create that margin. That margin becomes part of your day. That's exactly, I think, a good example, Inga, to come back to what perfect practice can look like. And we need to do that with our families, with our loved ones, with our friends, and so on.
It's really interesting to me that, and only after this whole exercise did it occur to me, I had literally shoved the worst parts of my life into boxes and toted them with me through my life, wherever I moved to, from town to town, from this and that. They were always with me as baggage, literal baggage. And I never opened them. I never explored them. I never really understood exactly what were in those boxes. And then, I mean, when I opened them up and started sorting, there are things like birthday cards from my parents, right? There's, childhood awards and things that I forgot about, right? There were memories of things that I had never thought about again, right? There's a deep psychological study here, I know, but but it's
part of it. My house, in writing this book, what I came to find out when I moved here to Florida, my mom had kept almost all of my newspaper clippings and almost everything. When I played in college in tennis, when I played tennis in college, when I coached, and then all the awards that I got, my mom kept everything. So my house, with the pictures that Inga you've seen in the book, and Joe, it looks a little bit like a museum right now. And I have storage. So I have a friend. She teases me, Jack, I hope your book goes really well so that way you can get more storage. And I'm going, no, that's not what I don't need more storage. Everybody see, but this is what happens.
Yeah.
And Joel, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it is an absolute privilege to witness the journey and be together with you. It's such a big difference a year ago when we met in our program, where with that vulnerability and a lot of uncertainty, but you showed up with a lot of pauses and reflection, and not as maybe courageous in involving in the conversations, and such a staggering shifts for every single time when we meet, how comfortable you are as you are. And this power is absolutely seeking through the millions of miles away, like to
Well,
Lithuania.
it really emphasizes the value of a community like this, because it was a very providential thing that day I was doing what I was doing, stepped out of that space to come join this community, and the conversation it generated. And I referred to Montes' question earlier, but I remember Joe even adding on, you have to sort through, be organized in other aspects of your life to be able to deliver the best form of yourself in other places, right? So I felt like that was really one of the blessings was, if I get all this personal sort of stuff sorted through and dealt with and kind of processed, then when I did get into my next role, career wise, my mind's in a much better place to bring my better self to that job than ever, right? So it is a testament to the value of having a community like this and being able to have that vulnerability and have the real connections to talk about things in a real authentic way, right? So,
Joel, just to draw a line between what you just said and the life work of Jack, is that whenever I talk about showing up as a better version of yourself for the situations where you want to perform, what Jack and Jim did that was just so different at the time, they were all about managing energy, managing your capacity, not managing time. But they were the two leaders that were at a time when time management was booming. Like, that was the billion-dollar business. And then you had Jack and Jim saying no, energy management over time management. So at the essence, when I talk about the essence of showing up as a better version of yourself, I'm just building upon what Jack and Jim started at High Performance Institute, in this idea of you're never going to show up as better version of yourself by managing time. You're only going to do it by managing energy, physical, mental, emotionally, spiritually. Like that was it, right, Jack? I mean, that's it.
The time management industry never lived up to its billing. It never did, because there's 24 hours in a day, and people I don't have time is the most common excuse people have. That is, and whether it's exercise, whether it's time with their families, whatever it is, I don't have time. Yet I've got all these meetings I've got to go to, and then my to-do list is bigger, and then I can't sleep, and then we get into this endless cycle that now, and then what happens? You see, now you get into the whole biological piece of being human, where stress is the stimulus for growth. Recovery is when you grow. If you have no recovery, you have no growth. But you see, as a biological organism, my doctorate's in physiology, you will get recovery one way or the other. So if you don't learn how to get recovery, like sleep well, you will use drugs or alcohol. You will. I mean, I'm sorry, you will, because we will find recovery somehow. And the phrase "I need a drink" is more than just a phrase, because physiologically, if you're just so driven, somehow your body needs recovery, and then we need sleep meds, and then I need coffee to wake up, and then honestly, it's an endless cycle if you don't learn about how to get your needs met the right way biologically. And by the way, you did that, Joel. Even though it's psychological, it's biological as well. What you did by creating that margin and then self-reflection, that has biological implications on your life.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Yeah.
And also, that's even when you're talking, I don't have time. Like I get anxiety.
Why do you get anxiety? We're gonna do a session right now. Why do you have anxiety?
Time is just like running too fast.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's interesting. I'm guilty of it myself, and I'd like to hear from the others. When you ask someone, "How are you doing?" Almost always their immediate response, "Oh, I'm so busy. I mean, God, work is crazy, and the family, the kids are doing this, blah blah." It's almost a place that everyone starts, right? To talk to, because I think it's a common denominator among people. It's an easy way to connect, to talk about how busy you are, right? Everyone is busy, right? But what if now, just being more cognizant of, well, how are you doing? Responding with, well, I really enjoyed my run today because X, Y, or Z, or kind of have a different response to that than the easy canned, I got a lot going on. And yeah, does anyone understand that? Did encounter that? Does that make sense?
Hard aleck response now, Joel. When somebody says, "How are you doing?" I say, "You know me."
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of my response now. "How you doing?"
Yeah.
You know me. I
Yeah.
don't need to answer it because you know me. So here we go. What part do you want to know?
Right.
It really does create a conversation. It creates a lighthearted, all right, well, let's go there.
Yeah. Right. People don't expect that. Yeah.
No, they don't. Not at all. Because
Uh-huh.
I'm fine. Okay. Yeah. No, it's a little tough. When somebody says, like if they hesitate, I literally will stop them in their tracks, and I'll say, "Wait a minute, you didn't answer that. Tell me what's going on." I
Uh-huh.
literally do that with people now, who I know. I'll say, "How you doing?" Like that. I stop the whole conversation. That's become a habit of mine. I say, "Come on, tell me what's going on," and they say, "No, you
Yeah,
don't."
I've responded to folks before and said, "Are you telling me the truth? Give me the real answer." And they'll be like, "Well, let me."
They'll say, "No, you don't want to know," and I'll say, "You're wrong. I do want to know.
Yeah.
I do want to know, and I'm here right now. I just stopped. Let's go." That's what I do now.
It's such a
Well, if
privilege
more people
to
did
give
that.
this
Yeah.
space for others too, to have that second response. I mean, this is also because if we are in that cycle of busyness, we miss those points, or we don't want to get engaged in those points, like, I need to deal with some other people problems. I have my own.
Yeah.
But like, that
Well,
shows again
yeah,
how we present
again,
ourselves.
I'm such a smart aleck. I mean, I own it. I'm in my 70s, but you think I'm 20 because I'm such a smart aleck. If somebody starts going off like that on me, like they're going, yeah, it is what it is, and I literally will say, well, it sucks to be you, doesn't it? And then I'll just pause and they'll look at you and they'll usually start laughing and they'll go, yeah, kinda. And I'll go, well, why don't you tell me?
I love this response. It's so good.
It sucks to be you, doesn't it?
Because people are so proud sometimes of their problems.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
not solving
Smart
it.
aleck. I'm such a smart aleck that I just don't anymore. What do I have to lose? What are you gonna do? Fire me? From what?
Heather,
Yes, thank you. So much of what I am hearing and picking up on in all of this conversation is sort of this dual nature. I'm a recovering busyness person myself. And so, as I've sort of leaned into that more and tried experimenting with, what are you doing this weekend? I'm going to sit in the sunshine. Boy, people don't know how to respond to that either. It's not
Yeah.
a list of the things that I'm going to go do, right?
Love it.
As I've leaned into that more, I have embraced it in such a way that I find myself feeling truly that I never want to go back. And then feeling fear come up because, the Dr. Jack version of Heather is the one who makes the money, keeps the lights on. How do I begin to integrate what I'm learning in this new space of non-busyness, vulnerability, and self-awareness into a lifestyle that I can practice that will still help me move forward, right? Like I don't want to abandon my performative self for all that she can deliver for our well-being. And yet, the more I lean into my true authentic self, the more I don't want to do that anymore. But I can't move off to Walden Pond and, commune with nature and
Yeah.
write my book and live with the fireplace and the fire and no electricity and the lights. So as I think about perfect practice, whether that's, myself or practicing with others, what tips do you have for that sort of integration phase?
Such a good question, Heather. Such a good question. First of all, I want to show you my son and I, when he was 12, we summited Mount Kilimanjaro. So I
Amazing.
will tell you that on the second day, we had trained so hard. He was the youngest on the mountain, and I was the oldest. He was only 12 of us. I have artificial knees. We got on the second day. We hadn't seen the summit yet. We hadn't seen the mountain, and all of a sudden, the clouds cleared, and we saw the mountain. And I went, "Holy crud! You got to be kidding me!" Because number one, it looks so far away, and number two, it's
Sure.
so hot. I mean, you're at 10,000 feet and over 10,000 feet, and that's almost 20,000 feet. You're only halfway vertically, and
Wow.
no way you can do it. So this idea that there's no way we can do it. When I had both my knees replaced, you can't walk. I had them both done at the same time, you can't walk. And I set a goal that in 90 days I'm going to hit tennis balls. Well, you can't get out of bed. You can't go to the bathroom. I mean, so all of a sudden you're going, it's too much. I set the goal too high. Kilimanjaro is too high. But I can take one step today. I can take another step tomorrow. And that's my son, all 12 years old. I was coaching my butt off on that mountain with a 12-year-old. I said, buddy, nobody's going to ask us what time we got to the summit.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to ask us. I said, all we need to do is just keep taking the steps. And then he's Chinese. So the whole phrase of the voyage of 1,000 miles is the first step. And then the next step, and the next step. So I said, I can't make it to that summit. I cannot make it, but I can take the next step. And I can take the next step. And with my knees, I can do what can I do today that I didn't or couldn't do yesterday? Just one thing. So Heather, my answer is incremental change. Don't think of, I can't do it all. You can't. But incrementally, you can do a lot. In just little bits here and there, with the right boundaries, you can do a lot. Just incrementally. And that's how big change occurs. I hope that's helpful.
Outstanding. That's great. Thank you.
How do you define, Jack, success? And what would you say to yourself, younger self?
Okay. Two questions. Success is whatever is meaningful to you. It's not how Jack defines success. It's whatever is meaningful to you. And there's no judgment. If you want to be a millionaire, a multimillionaire, and retire when you're 45, God bless you. You know, if that's what you want to do, just understand what the costs are to doing that. If you want to be if you want to be a school teacher and don't make that much money but have a very healthy, happy family, God bless you. I mean, honestly. So I think success is whatever motivates you intrinsically in your heart. It's not an intellectual definition. And then incrementally, what do I need to do to be successful as I have just defined it? So, you know, nobody ever did this with me. For me, having the father that I had, success was achievement. I mean, everything in I was raised on farms. On paper, I should have been a farmer. I should have never. I did 3 congressional briefings. I spoke at the United Nations. I mean, I'm in 3 tennis halls of fame. I should have never. I should have been a farmer. You know, and my relatives don't even know what I do. When my mother passed away, and I'm not making fun of anyone, by the way. I'm not making fun of anyone. But when my mother passed away, I had one relative come up and ask me if I was, and literally like this, "Are you still doing that tennis thing?" No idea. Had no idea what I had done in my career. Had no idea that I traveled to 52 countries. Had no idea what I had done in my career or my life. And that was my heritage and I loved it. I mean, my childhood was like Indiana Jones on steroids as a child. You know, I had my own gun at 9. I was hunting. I was in the woods and everything. And then it became like Forrest Gump as an adult. I mean, it was like I was doing all these things that I was never trained for. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, I look back on my life and I laugh at it because you can't make it up. I never had a tennis lesson, never had a speech class, never had a business class. Never had any of these things, guys. Never was a parent, you know, yet did all this stuff. So go figure. I mean, and I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is we're only limited by our own imaginations in who we are and what we want to do. We're only limited by our own imaginations. And I think my life is a perfect testament to that.
What you mentioned about the mentor professor who said you could be a pioneer in your field. Similarly, I had it as my first coach who said we're preparing for Olympics. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's so important also to have this kind of people who could also show what there are many doors, what you go through, or many paths, what you can take, and then support you in that dream. I don't think so I ever would even be in the sports professionally if not that one person. I mean, people saw I was athletic, but nobody even had the imagination what it's possible to go to be amongst the best in the world.
Yeah, the words we say matter. And that's biblical, by the way. The words we say matter. I mean, the mentoring matters. You saw me talk about that in the book, in the epilogue of the book. I talk about having hope in your life, no matter where you are, have hope. And number 2, either have a mentor or be a mentor, wherever you are in your life. That's the epilogue in my book, in my memoir. So the idea that we influence others is huge. And all of you are coaches. I mean, the idea that the coaching profession, we change people's lives. We influence people's lives every day. Those of us in coaching. It's one of the greatest professions in the world.
I agree.
By the way, Jack, Don, who's with us on the call, you might remember this summer that I got to spend a day with the South African junior and U23 canoeing team. That's Don's team. Don was coaching and leading that group, and he's the one who reached out to me. And that was one of the best days of my year in 2025. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed so much about it was that that these kids, I mean, some of them were a little more than kids, but they're all very young. That I felt like they were more clear about their journey of being on a human growth journey versus like athlete growth journey, more than almost any canoe team I've ever spent time with at that same age. And I don't know, when you talk about coaches, like I just point out, Don is one, and he's done like amazing job with that young group of athletes. A very, very special group. But that is something you don't see in the junior and U23 ranks of sport very often. It's usually about developing the athlete. And yeah, for however that happened, that entire team is like on human growth journey, not like over being athlete growth journey.
Right. Don, are you in South Africa?
No, I'm actually based in Vienna. So all of my coaching, as it were, is more of a facilitation. But yeah, it is really interesting because when I was a young athlete, the conversation of Dr. Jack versus Jack, because when you're a young athlete, quite often your identity is your sport.
100%.
And then being able to transition, I think, is really difficult. I think what's really interesting about that group that Joe met is because of how difficult our sport is to get to the high level because of a lot of factors within South Africa. A lot of them, we've kind of explained to them how difficult it is to get to that high level. So they understand very early on the identity as a sport is a very dangerous path because it's probably not going to work. But it's quite interesting that, Joe, you managed to pick that up because it's something I didn't notice until you mentioned it.
Interesting. Yeah, Joe told me about that. I love South Africa. I toured South Africa in the early 80s. It's part of in my book, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
We all need to get Jack's book, January 8th. And yes, sometimes we need to be mindful of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you for having me.
Before we part, I want Joe and Mantas maybe to say last parting words, and then Jack, your will be the last word.
Montes, you want to go?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'll be very short. I know that we're recording this, and I'm really excited that our community is gonna get to see this. It's just a thank you, Jack. You are one of those few people who I'm always publicly acknowledging for being an amazing mentor to me. And it's funny, I do know a lot about Dr. Jack. But I got to tell you, Jack has been also unbelievably supportive and helpful and loving and giving towards with and for my relationship with Maria. And you mentioned in a earlier that why someone might challenge, who am I to give this relationship advice, or like, who are you to give the relationship advice? I can just tell you, thank you for it is that life and human growth that you've given me, not the coach growth or, just performance growth. It's the human growth. And I just want to say thank you for that. And very specifically, in my relationship with Maria, I'm very grateful for what you contribute to how I show up in that relationship. So thank you.
A lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm actually thinking sort of it might sound, I'm gonna speak about death a little bit, so it might sound grim. Sorry about that, guys. But sort of with this opening, I remember reflecting on the difficult junctions in my life, where I had to make some tough choices about my future and the future of those around me. I remember vividly the feeling that, you know, the Mantas who is going through that process is not going to survive it. And he didn't, by the way, he died. You know, but I think the current I, and everyone who's in my life right now, including this wonderful team, you know, with whom LA is being born, you know, conversation after conversation, I think everyone is so much better for it. And I think sort of that's really all I have to share. You know, make of it what you want. That's my takeaway of, I guess, of letting go. And Jack, thank you for. I think you by sharing what you do, you sort of you legalize this, right? Because people are not, you know, we're not allowing a lot of this stuff. Right. Somehow it's taboo. So thank you for leading the way again. I guess that's your life's mission, isn't it?
You're very welcome. Thank you. So my turn, Maria or Inga? Okay.
Yes.
So I would just close with this. You know, we've had such a wonderful discussion, and I want to thank all of you for being so open yourselves. I think for your listeners and for you guys as a team, you know, every time we think about, you know, Joel, you had the sorting moment, and you didn't have to ask yourself this question, but maybe this question would have helped you even get to that sorting moment a little earlier. To just have this question always present in the back of your mind or somewhere. This question is always present for me, and the question is, what matters most right now? That I think if you have that question front and center when you are confronted with saying yes or no to a travel event, yes or no to a meeting, yes or no to missing someone's game or concert, what matters most right now will help you. It will help calibrate you, and it will help you navigate any storm that you're facing.
I would add even to your to this statement, by definition, what you created, what matters most, because sometimes we also get into this head, oh, what matters most, also what I maybe have this obligation, or how you said it also in the beginning of our conversation, to please others, how like my friend will look at me if I'm gonna say no because I'm tired.
Right,
I am tired, and maybe what matters most is for me to give that time to recover instead of going and showing up to that party or relationship. Jack, thank you so much for your presence,
thank you,
for your journey, for talking about being a whole person after experiencing what it means to be super successful professionally, and how much effort you putting into building relationships now, especially what you wrote with your son. And us strangers, we feel that love, we feel that connection, truly to be present and truly cherishing that.
Thank you guys for
Jack.
all you do. Thank you for everything you do.
And thank you everyone who showed up for this call to have this conversation. We appreciate you, and we cannot wait to share this space going forward, because challenging our thoughts, inspiring each other, being present, being open, this is our goal to have that perfect practice in our community. So enjoy your evening, and see you soon.